name is Kate Marisi, and you are listening to More Than Child's Play with your host, my mommy, Lacey Marisi, and my Aunt Nicole Surgeon. They're authors, therapists, and most importantly, mommies. And man, can they talk. So sit back and relax and learn from their village. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, this is Lacey and Nicole from More Than Child's Play podcast. We are coming at you today with a great new episode. We are so excited to welcome our friend Megan Dodd. Megan around here is also known as Alex's mom. That's probably her most famous title. We'd like to take a second just to tell you a little bit about Megan. She received her bachelor's in elementary education from Fairmont State University, a master's degree as a reading specialist from West Virginia University, also our alma mater, Go Mountaineers. She's received an additional certification in administration from Frostburg State University. Megan has been employed as a teacher in the grades 3 to 5 range. She's worked as a reading specialist, a lead teacher, and she's currently employed officially as an assistant principal. Principal. I'm a principal. Oh, she's a principal. I'm wrong. Say hi to Megan. She's a principal. She was previously an assistant principal, and now she's the boss. In addition to those things that are technically her full-time job and obviously the important job of being Alex's mom, Megan is the co-founder of a really important nonprofit we're going to talk to you about today called Down Syndrome and Cancer Coalition. And she also serves as an administrator and supporter of Down Syndrome Diagnosis Network, which for some of you who are listening in and are part of the Down Syndrome community, you might know that as the Rockin Moms. She is certainly a Rockin Mom. So that's a little bit about Megan. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming and having this important conversation with us. March is an important month for Down Syndrome and your community, so we're excited to launch this podcast in this timely way for this month. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with Alex? When did you find out he had Down syndrome? What was your pregnancy like? What was his birth like? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
Or about Alex even first.
Well, first, he's amazing.
Yes, he is.
He's a pretty amazing kid, and I'm so lucky to be his mom. I can remember, obviously, finding out that Alex had Down syndrome. I had a prenatal diagnosis. Alex is our only child, so it was my first and only pregnancy, and everything was fine. It was great. I felt I didn't have morning sickness. I enjoyed feeling the kicks and turns of a growing baby in my belly, and painted the nursery and picked out names, and everything was just rainbows and unicorns. And we went in for a scan at 28 weeks, and we were called into the doctor's office, and we could tell that the tone was different. And at that point, the doctor said there were some abnormalities on the ultrasound, and he was referring us to a periodontologist and wanted us to have a level 2 ultrasound. We pushed him a little bit to try to find out, well, what could be the worst case scenario, and the doctor really skirted that question and never really answered it. So we left there just, again, kind of being naive, first pregnancy, thinking, okay, it's no big deal. We were worried, but we just thought it wasn't a big deal. So we had a follow-up appointment with the doctor that was going to do the level 2 ultrasound, and that was 2 weeks later. So we went in at 30 weeks, and I remember immediately the tone was very different from the moment we checked in to the technicians that met with us. Everything was just very different, and we were like, oh. And I remember we took 2 cars that day because we were thinking, oh, we'll just go for our ultrasound and then we'll go back to work and life will just go on as normal. But I could quickly tell that it was a very different appointment. So when the technician came in to do the ultrasound, she was like, please don't ask me any questions. I'm not allowed to talk to you. I'm just going to take a lot of pictures. And so we just kind of sat there in silence, and the doctor came in after it was all over, and the first words out of her mouth were, there are multiple complications with your baby. And she said, I'm going to start with the most severe, and I'm going to work my way down. And
that's an interesting way to approach that.
It was a horrible day.
Yeah, that's
It was a horrible day. We left that appointment not knowing if our baby would survive. We left on a book about comfort care. And so we left in tears, and we didn't know at that point. We didn't know if Alex had Down syndrome. She was uncertain if he had Down syndrome or trisomy 18. And so we, at that point, did an amniocentesis. And 3 days later, she called and said, your baby has Down syndrome. And then that launched our journey of where we are today.
wow.
So
It's unfortunate more than unfortunate that's how that was handled. In talking to other parents, have they had similar reactions or similar, experiences to being told that news? Is that common that you know of? Or?
It is common. It is unfortunately very common that many people who receive a Down syndrome diagnosis have a negative experience. And I wouldn't necessarily say that mine is super negative because actually when she called to tell us that it was Down syndrome, her tone did change. And she said, it's going to be okay. He's going to have Down syndrome, and it's going to be okay. He's got a lot of medical problems, which we can talk about. But once you get through those medical complications, your life is going to be okay. So in that regards, our tone did shift.
Well,
but
that's good.
But it is not uncommon for families to have negative diagnosis experiences. And that is the work of the Down Syndrome Diagnosis Network, DSDN. That is their mission. One of their main missions is to change that experience. And they work tirelessly to educate medical professionals to do a better job at providing the diagnosis of Down syndrome.
When you were telling me about your ultrasound with our second daughter, they mentioned something to me that the ultrasound looked funny, and if the next visit was the same, they might refer me to a specialist. And I am annoying, I guess, and really blunt and pressed. And they said something was off with her kidneys and the bridge of her nose, and they were concerned that maybe she had Down syndrome. And I said, well, then just send me now.
Right.
Don't wait.
Right.
Just send me now. And when we left the specialist, they said they thought she didn't, but I shouldn't be worried about this. Worse things could be happening. My husband could be in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I still remember that.
Right.
And of course I didn't have the same experience,
right.
But I remember wow, what if there was something really wrong? Is this the person who would be delivering this news to me in this way? There just wasn't a lot of empathy.
And I do remember looking back at the 20-week ultrasound. Now I know there were soft markers on that at the 20-week ultrasound. But at the time, again, being naive and not knowing any better, I remember the technician talked about, at that point we thought it was a girl. So I remember they talked about her short femurs, and we laughed and said she's going to be short like her mom. And she said something about her nose. Well, I kind of have a boxer nose, and so people say, and we laughed about that. She's going to look like her mom. And I can't remember, there was something else. And now looking back, I question if the technician wondered then at 20 weeks, which is why they then invited me back at 28 weeks. Which led that. And so it was a very rough day.
When you came home from that rough day, did you have a network of moms to turn to? Did you have someone to talk to?
No.
To comfort you, to answer your questions?
No, I didn't.
What did you do?
When the doctor called us 3 days later with the FISH results that confirmed it was a Down syndrome diagnosis and not trisomy 18, I just immediately went to Google and started Googling Down syndrome. And
probably a lot of people do that.
Yeah. And you get all kinds of stuff. You find some good stuff, good, bad, and ugly. Yeah. So you find, and then of course you also hear all of the medical complications, which we knew that then became prevalent was, what was his heart going to be like? What was, what medical complications was he going to face? And we knew that we would not be able to deliver him locally, so we had to make plans for what hospital he would be delivered at. And so we chose Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland, for him to be. So then it was a lot of appointments to get to Baltimore. There was a lot of NST test, the non-stress test, which we had, multiple times just to make sure that he was progressing okay in utero. But my Google search led me a couple of different places, and I found one of the things I found was Kelly Hampton had a blog.
I've read it before.
About raising Nella, and I found her birth story, and I remember I found it in the late hours of the night while I was alone, and I read Nella's birth story probably 3 times and cried my eyes out. But it was the first time that I read something from someone who was feeling what I was feeling.
Right.
And then I found other books about families who had raised children with Down syndrome. One of my favorites was A Good and Perfect Gift. I think it's by Julie Becker.
We'll link all these in our notes.
That was one of my favorite books. I read several books, but that one I always remember. And I tried to find blogs I just wanted to know what life was going to be like.
Right. And to connect with someone who knew. I think anytime you're going through anything, whether it's yourself or your family or your child or your job or whatever, you just want to belong to someone who knows how you feel.
Right. And I do give Kelly Hampton a lot of credit because I devoured her blog. I went back and I would look at her pictures, and she's kind of known for her photography. And I would look at how beautiful Nella was, and look at them. They're at the beach, and look at them. They're at the park, and they're doing things that families do. And so she was pivotal in my experience of helping to give me a new vision for what my life would be like.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really good. So tell us about his birth, how he was as a baby, what was all that like?
Well, that was crazy.
True Alex.
He came into the world fast and furious. So again, probably being a first-time mama, I didn't really know what labor was going to feel like, and we knew we had to drive to Baltimore 2 hours away, and I started labor at home, and I didn't really recognize it as labor. I'm like, something feels different, but it didn't feel like I thought it was going to feel, like the movies make it look, and it didn't feel that way. And we didn't want to drive. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we were like, we don't want to drive all the way to Baltimore and get turned away. What if you're not really in labor?
Was it close to your due date?
It was 2 weeks early.
Okay.
So he was born at 38 weeks. We found out at 30 weeks that he was going to be born with Down syndrome.
And he was a short amount of time.
I always say I had the best of both worlds because I had most of my pregnancy to just enjoy being pregnant and not fret. But I had 8 weeks to research and come to terms with the diagnosis and really start to form that new vision for what our life was going to be like and what our family was going to be like and what our son was going to be like.
That's a positive way to look at that.
So I always say I had the best of both worlds.
So
we finally decide at like 3:00 that we have to leave to go to Baltimore. And as we're about an hour into the drive, I know that I'm in active labor. My water breaks and I'm no longer able to speak. And we get there and I kind of waddled up to the desk and I'm like, the nurses later laughed because I said, I think I might be in labor. And they examined me and they said, you are in labor. And he was born an hour and a half later.
Wow.
I did not have time for any pain medications or an epidural. And he was born an hour and a half later, and The room was filled with people. I remember they knew that he had Down syndrome. We knew that he had duodenal atresia and then was going to need surgery. We didn't know about the quality of his heart or what his heart was going to be like. And I do remember on the delivery, when I was delivering him, I kind of flashed back to that experience of not knowing if he would survive, because she had said this child might not survive the next 10 weeks in utero, and this child might not survive delivery. And I remember when I was pushing, the doctor said that his heart rate was dropping, and that those words played in my mind that he might not survive delivery. And I just get him out, do whatever you have to do to get him out. And she said, I can use suction if you want me to. And I said, do whatever you have to do to get him out, because I kept thinking, what if he doesn't live? What if he doesn't live? What if his heart, we didn't know what the quality of his heart was going to be like. So she's like, okay, we're going to use the suction to help assist you to get him out. And of course, I felt relief at that point because I didn't have any pain medication. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, he's out. We're done. And the room was just filled with people. And this nurse, those nurses, they are the front lines, and they're amazing. And she was so important in helping me refocus and work on getting him out. And she said, can you hear him? And I said, I can't hear him. And she just yelled, everyone be quiet so Mom can hear the baby. And I could hear him across the room. So I knew that he was going to be okay.
Oh,
or he was in that moment. We at least made it through that obstacle.
Okay, so now we're both crying. You can't see us.
I'm trying not to.
But we're all huddled around the microphone like a campfire crying about fresh babies and happy mamas, which is crazy. So he was in the hospital and he came home.
Yep, we had a 22-day NICU stay. And that the NICU days are hard. The NICU days are very tough. But we got through it. So yeah, we had surgery on day 12 of life for his duodenal atresia, which is an intestinal atresia in the intestines. So yeah, surgery on day 12, and then learning to eat and drink, and then came home on day 22. Yep.
And what was it like coming home?
Scared.
You were scared?
Scared out of my mind.
I think every new mom is scared, but this is a whole other level of scared.
Yeah, it was just a level of scared. I mean, we had gotten in those 22 days, we'd gotten so used to just NICU life, that becomes your new reality of our days of just getting up and going to the NICU and sitting with him. And
I've had parents say, we're so used to the monitors. We love the monitors.
Right.
Because they let us know our baby's okay. Right. And when we come home and they're not attached to anything, how will we know they're okay?
Right. And I remember I had a nurse
say, not be monitored.
Yeah, I had a nurse who would say, look at the baby. Look at the baby. And we would look at the baby and be like, he's okay. So we were very nervous. But we got used to that. I was pumping all the time. And, the NICU days just become your kind of new routine. So... But it was great to be home, of course, and introduce him to our dog at the time. And then we could start having family come and settle then into just what we imagined life would be like with a newborn.
Right.
Right.
So did you, because you're driven, I know you, and you're driven and you're passionate and you're a planner. What how did you mentally go about okay, he's home and I'm going to be not only his mom, but his teacher, because you have been his teacher. So did you have this is what I'm going to do? Or did you just take things as they came? Or
I think in the early days, I was all about, I'm going to do every therapy under the sun, and I'm going to show him flashcards all the time, and I'm going to talk to him all the time. And, I'm just going to work with him every moment he's awake. And I definitely think I felt that. And he's going to be the best kid with Down syndrome ever, which of course he is, in my opinion.
Right.
But over the course of the years, I've relaxed, and I recognize that Alex is going to do what Alex is going to do when Alex is ready to do it. That's a quote from Rachel Coleman.
That's a good quote.
So, and obviously those therapies are there to help us and to guide us and to help him be the best that he can be. But he also gets to be a kid,
right?
Too.
We have that conversation a lot with parents when we sit down. in early intervention and look at a family service plan and talk about services, and we say, it's not that we couldn't come and see you more often, but you have to balance in the time that you actually get to do this fun stuff with him and the time that he just gets to play and learn through playing without someone hovering over him.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes that's underscored, the value of that. But he did go through early intervention, and I can say proudly that I was his physical therapist at the end of his time in early intervention when his first therapist, lucky for me, moved.
Yeah.
And I have the HIPAA judges out there. I have permission to share that.
Yes, you can share that. You are a therapist.
Tell us, and you can even say negatives. Don't feel bad because I'm here. What was early intervention like? Like, if you were talking to a parent who was getting ready to do early intervention, what did you find helpful? What did you find annoying? What would you have changed if you had the ability to change it? Because I think that our audience is parents and therapists.
Right.
So I think it's good as therapists to know, what did that feel like as a parent? What can we do different?
Well, it's different. I think it's different from state to state. So that's one thing I know. But my experience was very positive. I loved our therapy team, and I cried when he turned 3. It was very bittersweet because it was like I was so excited that he was turning 3, but then it was like, but I have to say goodbye to all of these amazing people that have been in our life for the last 3 years, and who would also cry when he would meet milestones. They would cry because they were so proud of him. So in the beginning, I remember I'd clean my house, and and that you got over that. You get over that.
I always say I didn't come for a clean house or a clean baby, just a baby.
But in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, these people are coming and they're going to judge me, and whether or not I'm being a good enough mom, and what's my house, do I have my laundry put away, and that sort of thing. But I did get past that quickly.
If it makes you feel better, you have the best art of any
well,
house I've been in.
My husband will appreciate that.
They have really cool art in their house, so I never looked at the house was clean. I was very distracted by the artwork.
But we had a great experience, and we forged such wonderful relationships with them, and we still keep in touch with most of our therapists.
And he did well.
I mean, I can say it was challenging at times when you would match with a therapist that you didn't connect with.
Yeah.
And we did have to, along the way, let therapists go, and that was always tough. Like, because it wasn't personal, but maybe they just weren't the right match, or their style wasn't the same style that you needed or that you wanted or appreciated. And so those were difficult, but we were lucky in that we had a coordinator who kind of facilitated that for us, and it wasn't ever like awkward. We didn't have to say it or do it or anything.
And the therapists don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care. Well, I can speak for myself. And
We understand.
It happens all the time.
Yeah,
it happens all the time. It's like switching a hairdresser or...
But the other thing that's really hard when they turn 3 is you go from being so involved in the therapies from the birth to 3 aspect, and then they go to school, and then you're not really involved in the therapies.
Yeah, so what was that like? And even though you're involved in a different way, I would say you're still involved.
Yes. I mean, you still you get your notes, your progress notes, or that sort of thing on how they're making advances towards their goals. And but the great thing about the birth to 3 is that you would talk about ways we could incorporate things into our daily lives. Right. So like Alex didn't walk until he was 3 years old. He was a late walker, which that's a whole other thing.
But he read books before actually read. Because, if you're a therapist and you're listening to this, you're like, oh, yeah. Everyone thinks their kid can read and they've memorized whatever books. He phonetically could sound things out before he walked. I've never, ever had a kid who could do that, and I don't know if I ever will again. So he gets that page in my scrapbook of patience.
All kids with Down syndrome have strengths and weaknesses, and that is one of his strengths. But gross motor and fine motor and oral motor are not his strengths. So I forget where I was going with that. Oh, other than just when you would be there, you would help us learn techniques that we could apply in our home. That would be a part of our daily lives to help encourage walking or gross motor. Whereas now when he's in the school system, we don't necessarily get that. But it's also nice in some regards that
you have more free time to be a family too now.
Right.
Once he's home from school.
Correct.
And he is in
kindergarten.
Kindergarten now.
Yep, here in Berkeley County.
And how did that go?
It's been great. Good. It has been great.
He loves school?
He loves school. He is in a typical kindergarten classroom, in a general education classroom, surrounded by typically developing peers all day long. He has some pullouts for his support, for his services like occupational therapy and speech and physical therapy. But he is thriving in his environment, and we have a great team that love him and encourage him. And they also take care of me when I need it.
So, I think this would be, I'm imagining if I'm a parent listening at home with a 2-year-old, let's imagine a 2-year-old, and they're listening to you say, wow, he's in a typical classroom, fully integrated and included all day long. Do you feel like that's a combination of something you did before he went to school? Do you feel like that's a combination of a school that was receptive to his strengths and his individual, because every kid's different. So not every kid is going to, they might need more support than that. But like, how did you get there?
I do think that the school being open to having him in their classroom is key, but it is also his legal right that he has a right to be in that classroom. And I know that he can make it in that classroom. So he might be different and he might have differences and have different needs and need some accommodations and modifications. But those are things that are required to help him succeed. And schools have an obligation to provide those supports to our students so that they can be successful. And
that's important
in the school systems. And it's good for everyone. There are studies for decades and decades, there are studies that students that go to school in an inclusive classroom on both sides academically perform better. And that means Alex performs better when he's in, and his peers perform academically better, not just emotionally and the things they learn about empathy in our world, but they also perform better academically. So.
And do you find in talking to other parents of children who have Down syndrome that Alex's situation at school is common?
No.
That's kind of where I was getting at with that.
It is not common, unfortunately. And as an educator and as an administrator, it breaks my heart that so many of my friends across the country face battles with their educational teams for inclusion. So I'm very fortunate and very grateful that we have a school and a team that accepts him, and I hope that it stays that way, you know, because every year will be different, of course, and that gap could get bigger as the older he gets. Do
you have any resources or anything, go to if a parent, if just a community member, if a therapist, if a grandparent wanted to be an advocate for education on inclusion?
Well, there's IDEA is the law, so I would say to Google and look up, the rights under IDEA. Most states do have advocates that you can find,
Have you used advocates in the past?
I haven't.
You're just your own advocate because of your background.
I think because of my background.
Yeah.
But if there was a
parent who wasn't a teacher, they might find that helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So, tell us a little bit. Alex has had some unexpected medical complications.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, other than just the NICU stay and the duodenal retrieve surgery that he had and all of that, we just shy of his 4th birthday, Alex was diagnosed with leukemia, and he was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and that changed our lives forever and was another obstacle that we had to overcome. But Alex did it. He overcame that obstacle, and we've been off of treatment. It'll be a year in April that he's been off of treatment. So that'll be a big celebration. And it was another tough part of our journey.
Yeah. Was it something, this might be a weird question, but was it something that you had always worried about?
Yes. People with Down syndrome are more prone to certain medical complications such as heart defects. They can be more prone to hypothyroidism, or as they age, they can be more prone to develop Alzheimer's. And unfortunately, there are also more prone to develop blood cancers, specifically leukemias. Mm-hmm. So people with Down syndrome, ironically, are less likely to get tumors that are cancerous tumors. It can happen, but it's very rare. But they are more likely to develop blood cancers, and that's one of the things when you find out your kid's going to have Down syndrome. That's one of the things that they tell you, like, these are all the things you need to check off. And he might develop leukemia before the age of 4, and you hear that and you think, but you never forget it. You know that that's one of the risks, but you just hope and that it's not going to happen to you. But
right.
Unfortunately, for a portion of our community,
do you know how common it is?
I think it's 1% of people with Down syndrome will develop it. The statistics are different.
Depending on what source you go to.
Yeah, depending on.
And do they know why? Like, is it something about the chromosome that...
There's some really interesting research coming out of Colorado right now by Dr. Espinoza.
Okay.
And his theory is that it's an immune system reaction, and that could be part of the reason why they don't develop tumorous cancers, but it can also be why they are more likely to develop blood cancers. In fact, in thinking that their immune systems are basically in overdrive. And that is early stage research that's coming out of Colorado, but I find it pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But it is, unfortunately, it is one of the parts of our community, part of the Down syndrome community, that is just one of those hard pills to swallow.
Yeah, of course.
So.
After everything you've been through. And probably 4 is close to, like, you're hitting your stride for sure.
Yeah.
Of typical life, and then it probably feels like a big boulder.
It did. It did. Yeah. It took the wind out of our sails for sure. So,
when you were in the thick of his treatment and recovery, what saved you? If there's a mom listening to you, and she's what helped?
Of cancer?
Yeah.
Support system.
You had good family around you.
I had a very strong family and friends support. I had other moms, other cancer moms of children with Down syndrome that I communicated with regularly. And that would be the case also about finding out he had Down syndrome, finding other moms that had walked that walk, that knew what it was like to face a cancer diagnosis. And any cancer mom, but having then a child with a developmental delay can complicate that. Some children with Down syndrome are nonverbal or can have different reactions to different medications. And so finding other moms that had went through that was definitely a saving grace for me. But also just continuing to focus on Alex and watching him and seeing him continue to thrive, even despite the fact that he was so facing chemotherapy.
Yeah, he was so tough.
Yeah,
I have a family member and another friend, a couple other friends, sadly, whose children have gone through cancer and treatments, and they don't know each other, but they've all said separately, it actually was doable when we were doing it because your fighter mode kicks in, and you're focused on the next treatment, making the next to-do list, what the doctor needs you to do to get your kid through it. But all of them said when it was over, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was harder for me when it was over than when we were doing it.
Yeah, I had a moment when it was all over. Again, of alone, I don't really like to show my weakness a lot of times, but when I'm alone, I face that. And I had the same thing happen where I was just overcome with emotion and screamed into my pillow and I can't believe we just went through 2.5 years of treatment. But yeah, I mean, knowing what was coming, we were the kind of parents that we ask a lot of questions. We had our roadmaps, which they give you, the doctors give you, of the roadmap of the different phases of what to expect of the different chemotherapies. And it's very specific, like day 1, you're going to do this. And it would be like let's say it was a 48-day phase. Day 1, you're going to do this. Day 2, you're going to do this. Day 3, you're going to do this. So as a planner,
did you find that helpful?
That was helpful because I could just check it off the box and be like, okay, we've done that.
We've
done that. We've done that. Yeah.
Wow. I always find those comments from moms just inspiring is a weird word, but I get it. Like, I get it as a mom, how your first instinctual response is just to take care of your kid and not process your feelings till you know your kid's okay.
Yeah. Well, I never wanted to trade places with someone as much as I want the finding out that he had cancer. I mean, those days, the very next day, I just cried over his hospital bed and, we just wanted to trade places with him. I wanted it to be me having to face this obstacle more than anything. And I do remember being angry and like, why did this have to happen to us after everything we've been through? And a friend of mine who came to visit me in the hospital who has a very strong faith, I said to her, you are going to have to pray for me because I am too mad to pray. Yeah. And she said, I will pray for you. And eventually I came around and was able to pray.
Makes sense, though.
I was able to, find a stronger faith in a lot of ways. And I think the obstacles that you face, you come out the other side being better in some way because of it.
It was the first time, maybe once or twice I've ever done this in my life. When I found out Alex had cancer, I literally got on my knees by the side of my bed. And when we have therapy kids, like, there are kids, and I was a disaster, and I didn't even think about it. I'm like Little House on the Prairie praying here by my bed. I've not done this. Like, what am I doing? This is serious. This is serious business. God, I'm on my knees without a kneeler. But it just hits you.
Yeah.
It really hits you.
It was awful. The community was amazing. Of course, it just also, I think, showed how many lives Alex has touched in his time here. But yeah, he was amazing through it all. He sang his way through chemotherapy and told jokes and was known in the clinic for his jokes, and we got through it day by day by day. And we got through it.
But those experiences have led you to form a really important nonprofit. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about that? Because that's the good thing at the end of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, because leukemia is a part of the Down syndrome community, it happens. There are families finding out, every day that their kid that has Down syndrome has leukemia. And right after Alex was diagnosed with leukemia, a good friend of mine said, you need to talk to Becky Carey. Becky Carey has a little girl named Tessa, and Tessa had leukemia a couple of years ago, and you need to talk to her. So she was one of those cancer moms that I called maybe day 3 or 4 of finding out that Alex had leukemia. Didn't know her, but it was like, hey, I know your kid had leukemia and Alex has leukemia. Can I just talk to you? And I could call her at any time, text her at any time, and she would be there for me. And so as Alex and I started on the journey and we started getting further along in our journey, then another mom would hear those words. You. And so somebody would say, oh, you need to talk to Megan. And so then that mom would reach out to me on Facebook or would message me or text me. And so then there I was being for her. And so Becky, she called me one day and she said, there's something I've always wanted to do ever since Tessa had leukemia, and the timing's never been right. And I just think that you and I could partner up and provide a service for those in our community. And I was like, yeah. So she's like, I would like to start a nonprofit. And so we said, yeah, let's partner up and let's do it. And it's in its infancy stage, but we have aspirations and goals to grow it. And right now our outreach is really just to be a support system for those families and a place where they can get resources and where we can provide connections to other families.
That's really great.
So, yeah.
And we'll certainly link.
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
any
I'll give you the
information there. So in our community, and we sort of tongue in cheek say, "Oh, you have a baby who has Down syndrome. You don't know what to do. You need to call Megan Dodd." And so we're joking with her that we can now just send people this podcast because she's a busy lady, and I'm sure she'll still talk to people.
No, yes.
But when one of those moms calls you, what do you say?
I usually say, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It's going to be okay. And I have been so blessed on the journey to have had many cases where moms would come to me and I would get to say that to them. Mm-hmm. And that's usually what I say. And it's also okay to grieve and be sad and be mad. And I do think it's a grieving process when you find out your kid is going to have Down syndrome. I think you have to, for me, and it may be different, everybody's experience is different, but for me, I had to grieve the loss of the child I thought I was going to raise.
Makes sense.
And I had to form a new vision of the child I was actually going to raise. So I tell moms it's okay to feel whatever emotion you need to feel. It doesn't mean you don't love your baby, because I think sometimes we feel as moms that means doesn't mean you don't love your baby. You just have to form a new vision, but it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. That baby is going to be the biggest blessing that you never knew you wanted. Because nobody thinks they want a kid with Down syndrome, but it is the best blessing that you could ever imagine. I mean, Alex has taught me more in his 7 years of life than anybody has taught me. And we have this song we sing, and I'm like, I get to be your mommy. Like, I am the one that gets to be his mom, and I get to, see this world through his eyes. And he has taught me so much, not just about strength and bravery because of everything that he's faced, but about, perseverance and having a good attitude and never giving up, and just about acceptance of all of us and patience.
Well, and I think he's been a good teacher to other people too, because I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a house to be a therapist to a 3-4 week old baby, and the parents just in telling me about their story or their worries or their questions, and they'll say, "But do you know Alex and Alex's mom? Because Alex is doing so well."
That's so sweet.
So I think it happens more than you think. So I think his example of just looking, when you have a baby and then you look at a 7-year-old who's going to school and carrying a backpack and going to birthday parties, that's reassurance.
Yeah.
To say, like, look at that. There's something to point at, someone to point at and say, that's possible.
Right. And there's no better time to have a child with Down syndrome than now. The opportunities that are out there for people with Down syndrome are amazing. They're living better lives. They're going to college. They're getting jobs. They're getting married. There's no better time. So any of those aspirations that you have for your child can also happen with your child with Down syndrome. And we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Not just people with Down syndrome have different strengths and weaknesses, but we all do. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a matter of, embracing their strengths and encouraging those strengths and accepting, and again, accepting everyone, no matter where they are in their individual journey.
Right. And you do a lot of this advocacy work in our community and nationally, and is what you're talking with us about, is this the message that you usually share when you're asked to go speak to a group? Or
I don't really speak a whole lot. I mean, no. I haven't really spoken a lot, but
you speak to kids.
I speak to kids all the time, and I talk to a lot of moms, and I do. That is the other thing I'll say is I always, when a family or a new mom comes to me, I try to immediately connect them with the Down Syndrome Diagnosis Network, which is DSDN, and those
are the Rockin Moms.
Those are the Rockin Moms. And so that happened. That's an amazing nonprofit that started when Alex was around a year old. There was a group of us that found each other on Facebook, and we all had kids that were born in either 2012 or 2013. We kept the group small. It was about 150 of us, and it was a great place to ask questions about therapies, like, hey, my kid's not doing this yet, and my therapist is saying this, what are you doing? And we were all around the world, moms raising our kids, and just as a place, or just a place to cry and say, oh, I'm so frustrated today because this happened and this happened, and that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the thing I know now is that's going to happen whether you have a kid with Down syndrome or that's going to happen
or you just
whether
have
you
a
have
kid.
a kid. Right, you're going to have those days. But we had this really safe place that was private, that we could trust each other, and then that then became the greater nonprofit of DSDN. And
so do they still do sort of like a class of 2014, a class of 2015?
They do. That
it's almost like a sorority.
It is. I am a sorority girl, and I have said before that it feels like that in a sense. But
they have fun weekends.
We have Rockin Mom retreats.
They go on retreats. They look really fun.
They are.
I'm almost a little jealous.
But they now are serving about 9,000 families.
Wow.
Worldwide.
That
and so that is one of the things that I always try to immediately get a new mom connected with, because that is one of the things that saved me in the Down syndrome journey, as well as the cancer journey, is finding other moms that had been through what I had been through, whether that was raising a kid with Down syndrome or whether that was having a kid with Down syndrome and leukemia. So I always try to get new moms connected with that organization. And then they get to come on our retreats, and they are a lot of fun.
That's so great. So we talked a minute about Alex's reading ability and how he read before he walked. I know you love literacy, because regardless of Alex, you are a reading specialist. Is in general, any kids, what for parents who want to instill that early love of literacy like you did with Alex, what do you suggest?
Read to your children. Read to your children every
silly,
day.
But a lot of times it doesn't happen.
I know, but read to your children every day. Talk to your children about the books that you're reading to them. It can be just a little picture book, but you can talk about the sun is in the sky and the sun is yellow and gives us heat and helps our plants grow, and we just, as you're reading those books, just talk about the pictures and talk about the story. And Alex maybe just takes after his mom. I love books, and it was something that he was immediately drawn to. From the time he was a baby, he would want to look at books. And I don't know if that's just one of his things, because that's innately who he is, or if it's something that I did. But when he was a 1-year-old, his birthday was a bookworm party, because he was a bookworm even at a year of age. So we read together.
It's hard as a therapist. My mom was a teacher and was a librarian, and when I would try to get him to do some hard motor stuff, but first we have to read this book. Well, how can you say no to that? Of course we can read this book.
Yes.
I will never say no to the book.
He's gotten very good at negotiating now as a 7-year-old as well. But first is
we're
his favorite negotiation.
That's funny.
I do remember too, I read, and I think this was after Alex was born. It must have been like his first year of life. I'm trying to remember now the title of the book. I think it was Down Syndrome Parenting 101, I think was the name of the book. But there was a whole chapter in there about teaching your children to read. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, Alex can learn to read. And it was a whole chapter about how she taught her son to read. And the one thing she said is teach them to read before they go to kindergarten, because the teachers will always hold high expectations. They will always say, wow, that kid can read.
Advice.
And as an educator and as a person who worked in the school systems, I'm like, yeah, that's spot on. They will always know that Alex can read, and they'll always have high expectations for him. So I kind of was like, you are going to learn to read. And then he was naturally drawn to it, and I remember the day.
And some kids might not. Some kids might be more motor.
Correct.
And not as drawn to literacy.
Right.
But
so I always like to say that to
as
parents.
a bookworm, it was nice that you got a kid who liked to read.
And I can't wait for us to. I know that one day he and I will read the same books, and we will have discussions about them. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind.
That'll be fun. So, what else do you think people need to know that are listening? Therapists, parents who are facing this similar journey, parents who aren't facing this similar journey. How can
I mean, for those if there's parents out there, again, it's going to be okay. Day by day, if you're in the throes of therapy, it's okay to relax. It's okay to breathe. It's okay to take a therapy break sometimes, because sometimes the kid needs that, and sometimes the family needs that. If you're out there and you're not in the Down syndrome community, just be open and accepting of those with differences, whether that be a child with Down syndrome or a child with a different disability. Please don't use the R word. It's a very offensive word, and it just needs to go away from our...
a lot of people still do that? I wonder if I don't hear it or you don't hear it because we're therapists.
Yeah.
And people are like,
we still hear it.
Yeah?
We still hear it. I mean, not as often, but it's just remove it from your vocabulary. It's not necessary. And just, be open to differences. And
that's an important message.
Yeah. And they can go to school, and they can play baseball, and they can dance and ride bikes and do everything else that you've ever imagined that any child would do. Your child with Down syndrome can do as well. They might have more obstacles. They might encounter more obstacles, but our kids are really tough too.
Yeah, very tough. And I find too, even though there's more obstacles, there's on the other side a counterbalance of unique blessings.
It's sweeter.
It is sweeter.
It is sweeter.
It is much sweeter. A much higher appreciation for life.
Yeah. We are
naturally.
Right. We are the lucky few. And, and there's a whole hashtag out there and a tattoo. And we are the lucky few.
That is true.
And I get to be his mom.
That's the best job you have.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool.
So we will link, Megan I know she's going to send us a bunch of resources. And when we post this podcast, we'll post the resources as well. If you have any questions about the podcast or about any of the resources, feel free to engage with us on social media or wherever you see this podcast here. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Fun.
I know you're busy.
It was so fun.
But I really think we hope that all of our podcasts will be helpful to someone. But this one is really important to us because we know a lot of specific people that it will be helpful to, that we know and love and that we don't even know. So I think it's important to share personal stories. And, you read blogs. Someone can listen to you going to work or working out.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it was helpful. And I thank you for letting me share Alex's story.
Sure. Keep in mind that you can always find us online at milestonesandmiracles.com. We happily ship 1, 2, 3 Just Play With Me all over the place. There's some other great resources online for parents and for professionals. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in.